Well, welcome everybody. My name is James Dunn, and I am the organizer of this Turning the Outbreak Into Opportunity Facebook group. As I've shared with on each one of these calls, when all this came down, we started doing the self-quarantine and the physical distancing, and a lot of people were getting laid off. Obviously, there was a lot of fear and confusion going around for a big portion of the population. But I instantly was able to see the opportunity in it. And I wanted to make sure that people, were able to see that themselves. I've done a ton of personal development work over years and years and years and years. So I was able to see it a lot faster than I think, many people would. And I wanted to make sure to give them that opportunity to see what was available to them in this little pause and reset. Because really, that's all it is. It's just a little break. Yeah, it's kind of crazy right now what's going on. It's something none of us have ever been through, and hopefully we'll never have to go through again. But really, all it is just a little pause. It's a break that we're taking in our lives. So while we're on this little break, I wanted to make sure that we gave everybody an opportunity to, have a safe environment to come into and learn something every day and stay, positive minded and focused on what was available to them, instead of just getting too caught up in watching the Tiger King, and whatever craziness is going on with that, and watching the news, which is just, talks about death and how this is horrible and whatever, and, all that crazy mess. So I digress, but what we're doing here is just bringing speakers in every single day. We have shifted that. That was the initial run. That was the 14 days. That was my initial plan. So I thought 2 weeks it's going to be over. We'll all be back to our normal lives. But we're finding out that's not the case. It's going to take a little longer than we had anticipated. So what I'm doing now is we're going to do every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to continue to bring you speakers to help you, again, keep your mind focused on the positive, potential for what we've got here. And I've got another great speaker today. But before I introduce her, what I want to do is also mention that if you're following us here right now on Facebook, we do have the Zoom call, which is where we're doing this. And you're welcome to join us over here if you want to be a little bit more interactive with the conversation. But I will also be monitoring the Facebook feed on my phone. So if you see me look down, look away, it's not because I'm bored of ignoring anybody. I just want to keep tabs on the comments that are coming in. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section over there, and I will, bring them over so Stacy and I can discuss them in real time. And last but not least, oh yeah, feel free to share this. Definitely feel free to share this. There is the option, if you're watching it on Facebook, to host a watch party. If you want to post it on your page and another group page, you're more than welcome to do that. This group is open to the public. I'm more concerned about getting these messages out to anybody and everybody than I am about saying, this is my little group and nobody can get anything out like that. This is open. We want these messages out to as many people as possible. So feel free to share it any way that you feel comfortable doing that. And with all that being said, Stacy, I'm going to give you a nice formal introduction if I can read. And this has been my challenge all this past 2 weeks, is I'm great at talking, but actually reading is something not so much. So let's see how well I do it. So,
if you don't want to, I can always introduce myself.
Well, you know what? You just just introduce yourself.
All right. I'm Stacy Gissal. And there you go. That's who I am. So it's funny. I'm a nurse. I am a nutritionist, and I am an educator. So I've kind of coined the term, I'm a nourishinator.
Nice.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, I never would have came up with that. That's not my little handy dandy book here.
That's not in your thing. That's why, hey, whatever. I have a husband and 3 fur babies, no kids, but yeah, this is it. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for what you're doing with this entire group. Like, that you're bringing so much good stuff to people is amazing. So thank you for that, and thank you for having me. I've been hearing something a lot lately of like, the world's never going to be the same. Like, what if we never get back to normal? And I was thinking about that, and this has nothing to do with the topic we're going to talk about, but I was like, is that such a bad thing? Like, what if it shouldn't go right back to normal? Like, I hope that we come out of this in a totally different state of mind than we went into it. So I don't know. That was just a thought of mine.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. It will never ever be the same, but yeah, I just hope people come out of this with a new perspective on life. And that's been my big thing that I've been preaching all week long in the last 2 weeks is take this time, really look at your life, and do you need to pivot? Do you need to shift? Or, at least make sure, take this time to see that I am on the exact path that I want to be on, and I'm excited to get back to the quote unquote normal or the new normal, whatever that happens to be. But yeah, hopefully it's not going to be the exact same. People are going to go into it with a fresh appreciation for either what they're doing or this new path that they can go on, and not just, go back to the same old rat race, hamster wheel, that whole mess.
100%. I agree with you on that. So second thing is please ask questions if you have questions. I love to, sorry, I get really popular every time I'm on some sort of call. Like
Is that you or me? Because I got the neighbors over here mowing the yard, and I'm trying to make sure he's not getting too close.
I tell ya. So please ask questions. I'm here to serve you, and I will take the conversation in the direction that I have my notes written, but I would rather take it in the direction that you guys want to hear. So I'm not against that. I will pivot to whatever's going to help you guys and serve you the most. So please feel free to ask questions. And then the other thing is that if you really want to get the nitty gritty on my life and how I got to where I am, I actually just posted my entire journey through seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes from only focusing on nutrition and fitness as far as your health goes, and in my story. So if you go to my Instagram, Stacy_Gissal, you can either look at my story, it's on there today, or you can just go to the highlights and it's under my journey, and you'll be able to get a really clear understanding of why I'm so passionate about what I now teach. So yeah. So that makes things easy. So head on over there. So, well, what we're going to talk about, actually, before we get into that, I have one other question for everybody that no, I'm not going to bother you with that yet, because I feel like that's all you're going to think about the rest of the time. So, all right, we'll start with this.
We'll save that then.
What?
We'll save that one then. We'll put a pin in it.
I want, because it's a series, it reminds me to ask this question because I've been pondering it for weeks now. Okay. This is what I mean. Like, if I tell it now, you guys are going to be like, what? You're right. Why is that? So, all right. The whole reason I came on was to talk about building meals for optimal health, right? So alongside of that, I'm going to bust a couple nutritional myths. And then if there's any myths out there or anything that you're confused about when it comes to nutrition or health and you want an answer to, throw them in, ask the question, I'll help answer it. But why this is so important. So what we're eating is obviously, and what we're putting into our body is obviously really important. But what people sometimes don't realize is how we put meals together is actually really, really important as well. And it's something that actually goes missing. And I know that because I've worked with a lot of clients. And one time a client was telling me, she's like, Stace, I am hungry like every hour. And so I'm like, okay, that used to happen to me. So I'm like, let's talk about your morning, right? And she's like, okay. She's like, so I wake up, I have a bagel, like one of the small bagels with cream cheese. I'm like, okay. And she's like, and then an hour later, I'm hungry. So I have like a hard-boiled egg. I'm like, okay. And she's like, and then an hour later, I'm hungry. So I now have apples with some peanut butter. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, let's take all of those things and eat them at one time. And let's see how that goes. And she messaged me a couple days later and she's like, Stacy, this is amazing. Like, I eat in the morning and I'm not hungry again until like almost lunchtime. And I'm like, all right. So there's a reason behind this, and it's because the way that food goes into our body and interacts all together makes a big difference as to how our body metabolizes it. And also, if you're only eating like 100 to 150 calories at a time, you're not going to stay very full for very long. But the big reason that we want to focus on this is because what we're trying to do is keep our blood sugar regulated throughout the day. So what we don't want to see is these big ups and downs in our blood sugar. We want it to be pretty even keel all day long. And that keeps everything in our body functioning at like this really high level, because it's not fighting these up and downs all day. So I'll give you a little bit of like sciencey stuff about how that works. Okay. But for example, our body reacts, our blood sugar spikes when we eat a lot of carbohydrates. If we're eating only carbohydrates. So let's say we have a bowl of cereal in the morning. What happens, and that's pretty normal for people, like they just have a bowl of cereal, it's fine. But what actually happens is because all that is pretty much carbohydrates. It goes into the body, and our body doesn't like severe spikes in anything, but it has nothing to slow it down. So it doesn't have any protein, it doesn't really have any fat, it doesn't have anything to slow it down through the digestive system. So it hits our cells, and our blood sugar spikes really high. And then what happens then is our body overcompensates by releasing a bunch of insulin into the body. And then it grabs all the sugar and it pulls it. And then now our blood sugar, because again, our body likes to overcompensate for things. So it pulled out too much blood sugar. So now we go from way up here to low blood sugar. And it's in those low blood sugar states where we end up getting hangry. That's where we are. This is where Andrew's like, my husband's like, please God, get Stacy some food, because we're moody, we're tired, we start craving things like sweets and sugar and caffeine, and we have no focus, like there's nothing there. So then what do? Our body is super smart, and it knows the fastest way to get our blood sugar back up is through sugar.
Yeah.
And so what does it crave? It's like, give me some freaking sugar, because I need to get my blood sugar back up. And so then we're on this roller coaster, right? Again, this is what we're trying to avoid, but it's not always like this, like, oh, I'm addicted to sugar. It's like, no, it's probably, we just need to learn how to put meals together in a way where our blood sugar is not going up and down. Because again, our body is really smart. It's going to find a way to get what it needs. And in that moment, what it needs is sugar.
Yeah.
So with that said, that's why it's so important that we get that like even keel. So how do we do that? Is good question. So we do that by how we put our meals together. So when I'm teaching people how to build meals, you want to think about it like this. You want to have a protein. You want to have a starchy carbohydrate, which when I say starchy carbohydrate, it's usually something like white or brown rice, white or sweet potatoes, oatmeal, like something of that nature. You want to have a healthy fat, and then you want to have some sort of fiber. So most of the time you're seeking out, like I love to tell people, try to get about 6 to 8 servings of veggies per day. So usually a couple servings of vegetables is going to give you the fiber. So when you're able to put your meals together in that way, it slows it down through the digestive system, and it does a really, really good job of keeping that blood sugar stable. So that part's really important. That's kind of how we want to be building meals.
Just making sure they're much more of a balanced meal versus just one or two of the things, because it helps, say the way it just slows it down. And then also, instead of everything just overcompensating, it's good, cool.
Yeah. And so it's pretty simple. Like when you can think about it that way. The hardest one that people usually have a hard time with is protein. Protein's the more difficult thing to get because it's not as easy. Like carbohydrates and fats are pretty easy to get by grab and go things. Protein isn't always. So you have to focus a little bit more on that. But the thing with protein and why it's so important is because our body doesn't store it. So it is like, it stores carbohydrates and it stores fat, but it doesn't actually store protein, which is why every single day we want to make sure that we're getting enough of it. So that way we are replenishing that and our body can use it every single day. So I usually recommend people are aiming for about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So so that's just something to kind of shoot for.
Okay.
But and then as far as how many meals a day should you be eating, it all depends on the person, and it all depends on how big your meals are. So like usually I would say for a like average person, you're looking at like 3 to 4 meals per day. And if you are building most of them in the way that I just taught, like I just said, then you're doing amazing. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can kind of think that through, like, okay, do I have my protein? Do I have my carb? Do I have my healthy fat? And do I have some sort of vegetable? You'll notice that you really will start to feel significantly better. You won't have as many like afternoon crashes. You're not going to have that loss of focus. You'll stay more full for a longer period of time. So you will start to notice kind of those things.
Yeah. Well, and question for you, since you just brought up, 3 to 4 meals per day, what are your thoughts on, like, the big thing right now is, of course, intermittent fasting, and only eating in like a certain window of time through the course of the day.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that? And, eating like that small window or how many meals? Because I've even heard, and this is the extreme, but some people only eat like 1 meal a day, which to me is absolutely insane. But what are your thoughts on that whole
Yes.
thing?
So I love that you asked that, because I actually had that as like one of my things I was going to touch on was intermittent fasting. And then like also this thought that we can only eat at like certain times of day and nutrient timing. So it depends why you're doing it is always my answer to that. And this is like the super annoying thing about nutrition is that it depends. It's like
hey,
always.
Come on. It can't just be the exact same thing for everybody.
Yeah. So that's funny, because my first myth I was going to touch on is that there is no perfect diet or way of eating for everyone. We all, and you know that because if you went to 10 different doctors, nutritionists, fitness experts that think they know what they're talking about on Instagram, like if you went to 10 different ones, they would give you 10 different ways to eat. So like, obviously, it's also this thought of what works for you might make your best friend feel like crap. So one thing that I teach people is how do we find our unique nutritional blueprint? Because we all are so different in the way that our lifestyles are, the way that our body processes certain things. What makes us feel great, again, could make somebody else feel like crap. And so you have to understand how to listen into your body and figure out what's going to make you feel good. So back to the intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Again, it works for some people, but what is your intent? So this is always the question that I like to ask is, what is the intent behind what you're doing? Because intermittent fasting is not a magical weight loss tool. It is a way of cutting down your window of eating. And if you are eating in less hours, you're naturally going to take in less calories, which for some people will have them lose weight. If they're already under eating, it's not doing you any favors. So that's kind of a thing. Yeah. So as far as that goes, like, again, the 1 day meal a day thing, you cannot, not many people can get
yeah, well, the example when I think of that one, he's some military general, some freak of nature kind of guy. So I definitely don't want to toss that out there. People think, well, I should do that because this is like say a very unique individual that made that comment.
For sure, but it is a thing. The 1 meal a day, it's not the first time I've heard that, and people they're holding on to it. And like I've even heard, and in different, like there was actually a friend of mine works at a hospital, and this was not recently, but before she was hearing all these nurses, and she was overhearing their conversations, and they were purposely trying to go, like they were having a competition on how long they could go without eating. Whoa. And I'm like, there's 3 things we need in life: water, sleep, and food. So like, you gotta quit trying to not eat. Like that's not a good thing.
Not at all.
No, not at all. But for me, it's like, okay, so there's very, very few people that would be able to get in the amount of calories that you need to sustain sustain what you would need if you were in a coma in 1 meal, let alone like some people struggle to get it in all day. Yeah. So I don't love that. Where intermittent fasting can be really beneficial is there's usually, I recommend for people like a 10 to 12 hour window between when you ate the night before and the next day. And it's a big piece of that is your digestive health, actually, because it takes about that long for your digestive system to clear out. And if we never allow our digestive system to rest, then it never gets a chance to heal, right? Because if we're constant, it's kind of like when we work out. If you work out every single day and you never get that recovery period, then you actually can't get any better. And so it's the same thing with our digestive system. So as far as intermittent fasting goes, that can be helpful for people. Yeah, and then women, okay, I don't recommend it for women. There's a lot of nutritional diet type things that can be really, men can get away with a lot more than women can. Women are very sensitive to their food intake, and it's because like we're meant to create and reproduce. Like, so our hormones, if we're not eating enough food, there's a reason why our sex drive just goes in the toilet. Like there is a reason that we feel like total garbage. It's a reason why we lose our periods if we're not eating enough food and we don't have enough body weight or body fat, because the body is like, again, the body isn't working against you. It's trying to protect you always. And so it's like, hey lady, like if you don't have enough food to feed yourself, we are not going to give you a baby to take care of. Like that's not going to happen. And so if that's the case, it's like, you're not going to be like, hey honey, you want to get it on? Because like, no, your body's like, no, we can't have a child. Like, so again, like it all kind of comes together. But again, with intermittent fasting, women, and again, it's different for everybody. Some people absolutely love it. So I'm not going to say no, it's not for everyone, but women do tend to be more sensitive to it. And it puts an extra stressor on their body, which very few women out there actually need more stress induced on their body right now.
Yeah, so. No, definitely not. Yeah, I was curious because I mean, I know I myself, it's definitely not a weight loss thing. I've literally never weighed more than 175 pounds in my entire life. So like last thing I need to do is try and lose weight. But I still have gotten into that habit of, I try not to eat anything after 8 o'clock to give myself that window until the next day. And then the first thing I have is at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll have a protein shake. And then at noon, then I'll eat my first knife and fork kind of meal, which is almost chicken, brown rice, and peas, So I was just curious. Because like I say, you hear so many different things about it, but I love how you shared that. So awesome.
Yeah. And it really does. It just totally depends. And the good thing is you are getting in some calories, but having a protein shake is a good way of doing that, to kind of, because you're still actually giving your digestive system a break. It doesn't actually have to, work as hard if you're drinking something.
Yeah. And that's what I figured. Yeah.
It kind of comes down to the intent.
Yeah. And really, it boils down to what you said. It was more, I'd heard the benefits of just giving your digestive system that break, because like you said, if it's just constantly, because it drains so much of our energy, that digestive system, takes so much of our energy to digest all that food. So it's nice to give it that break every now and then. And that's an easy window to do it, really. Even if you were to go till 10 o'clock and 10 o'clock the next day. I used to be that guy, like you talk about your friend, like every hour they need to eat. If I didn't have something every 2 hours, I was freaking the fuck out. I'm like, oh my God, give me some food. I got to have something. Yeah. But it really, what I learned though too, was it was so much more mental than anything, because I did do a fast for like a 48-hour fast, and getting through that first day, you're like, oh my God, I haven't eaten today. Like I haven't eaten like the next day. And so, yeah, once I got past that, it helped open up that window a lot more too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's like this really fine line, because we're kind of teaching people that hunger is like a bad thing, where hunger is not it's not a bad thing. Again, we survive off of 3 things, like food, water, and sleep. And so but we've really been taught like, oh, I can't be hungry again. I can't be hungry again. And that's like kind of the point of when I say like you're building your meals, is starting to tune into, maybe you just need to be trying something different. Maybe you need to be putting more calories together into one meal, because this is something that people run into is, I just ate an hour and a half ago. I can't be hungry. Yeah. I'm like, okay, but you ate a 150 calorie protein bar. Not going to take your body that long to go through that energy, especially depending if you are a very active person or you're just fidgety or anything like that. Like all of that kind of plays a role into it. And so, yes, I agree with you. I would say if you are fasting and you're doing intermittent fasting, and if you are like hungry. Like, we know what hunger feels like, and it's not
Yeah.
like you drank a glass of water, it didn't do anything. Eat something. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay every so often to break that fast a little early. If you're like you have that gurgling in your stomach and you're like, I am just like starving, eat something before you go to bed. Or if it's before your 10 a.m. time frame, like, we have so many rules around food.
Yeah.
If it's before that, it's not, 9:03, it's okay. Like, eat some
Yeah.
food.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I would beat myself up over for a while. Was like, if I had something after 8 o'clock, I'm like, oh, what'd you do that for? It's like, dude, you're fucking human. Get the fuck over it. It's okay. If you're hungry, you're hungry. And if it's not, you don't, I mean, there were times where I would literally look at my phone like 9:58. No, not yet. See, I gotta wait till 10. I'm like, get the fuck over it, man. Just go ahead. Your body isn't going to know the difference between 2 minutes. I mean, it's the principle of you're aiming for a certain area, and there's gray area. And like I said, this day it may work perfectly. Yep. There's days I go till 10:30, it doesn't happen. So just roll with it.
Yeah, again, like listening, like learning to tune in is so important, and not placing so many rules, because the reality is that biological hunger is good. Like, we want to pay attention to biological hunger. That's when we're starting to feel those like subtle, and it's different for everybody, but you might start to feel that subtle growling in your stomach. You might start to lose focus. Some people, if they've really downregulated their metabolism, they won't necessarily feel hungry, but they like have no energy. But what actually happens is that we've been taught to ignore it, kind of like you were just talking about, like, no, I can't eat, I can't eat, I can't eat. And then what will happen is we go into primal hunger.
Yeah.
So primal hunger, we have very little control over. So that is when our blood sugar has gone so low and our body needs food so bad that as soon as you see food, you now are eating everything in sight, because like you didn't tune into the biological part and you went past that, and now you're like, holy shit, let me eat everything because I'm starving. And then we have a really hard time tuning into our fullness cues. That's when we tend to overeat, because we have just totally like wiped out that ability to stop, because our body is in this like, it's in that starvation of like, oh my God, just get it in. Like, yeah, and it makes it really hard to stop. So yeah, there's like this really fine line of, you have to be careful that we're not putting so many rules and beating ourselves up over. And this is the same thing with, like, if you're doing Weight Watchers or macro counting or something like that, and like you run out of food, but it's 9 o'clock at night and you are starving, your body needs more food. Like, naturally are going to eat a little bit less and a little bit more on a daily basis. We shouldn't be going like up and down like thousands of calories or anything, but it's natural to do that. And so like, I never recommend, don't go to bed hungry. Like, your body, it doesn't know that you're trying to lose weight or you're on a diet or whatever. Like, all it knows is that I'm hungry. And I joke too that like your body doesn't reset at midnight, nor does it reset on Sunday. So we get really obsessed with same thing in the fitness realm. And this was totally me, is I would be like, well, like, never miss a Monday, or I didn't work out 5 days from this Monday till Saturday, or Monday till. And I'm like, your body doesn't fucking know. Like, it doesn't know that it's Monday. And if you are feeling super beat up and stressed out, then you should take the day off. Like, if you only worked out 4 days, 1 week, and 5, it doesn't know.
Just give yourself a break there. And before we get too far away from it, you mentioned something about going to bed hungry, and we got a question here. Anna's asking, what is a good thing to eat before bed to help keep your blood sugar from dropping during the night?
Love that. That's a great question. So, okay, you guys are going to hate me. It does kind of depend, but.
It depends. What? No, dang it.
I know. Like, so again, like, this is a big thing, right? You have to figure out what's best for you. And it depends on the situation. So normally you would want to eat something pretty high in protein and have like some healthy fats so that's like, I mean, some people will do like a protein shake with some like peanut butter, or maybe even, but if you are not eating enough carbohydrates, Sometimes adding a carbohydrate, I've had this happen with numerous clients where they added in like usually something I'll recommend is like Greek yogurt with granola is like a good thing to eat before you go to bed. But they will have like either that, or they might have like an English muffin with some peanut butter or something. And they will actually sleep, like they start to sleep like babies. And the reason is because, again, if you're not getting enough carbohydrates, especially as women, then we are in a stressed out state. And when our body is stressed, then in the middle of the night, that cortisol will spike. And like, so sometimes if women, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, like, and you almost feel like you were jolted out of bed and there's really no reason behind it, it could be because your blood sugar dropped, then your adrenaline picks up, like it's like, whoa, your cortisol, and then you wake up from that blood sugar drop. So experiment with a couple different things. Try, like I said, you can start by trying with just like some Greek yogurt and some granola, see how that makes you feel. Maybe just like a protein shake before you go to bed. See how that goes, and then see if you start sleeping better. A big sign that you're not eating enough food is that your sleep sucks. So if you might be simply not eating enough food throughout the day. So maybe try adding something right before you go to bed and just see if your sleep starts to get better. And if it does, then you know that was a good indicator that you probably do need more food.
Awesome. Cool. That's great.
Any other questions on that?
Nope, that's the only other question we've had so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to kind of the myth about like carbohydrates are bad or they make you fat, like that was kind of something I wanted to touch on. And back to what we said about there is no perfect diet for everybody. So with my program and like the clients that I work with, I really try to help them understand the what's going to make them feel the best. And so there is nothing wrong with carbohydrates. We've already spoken on, for women, they're actually very important to our hormone health. Same thing with healthy fats, like fat doesn't make you fat. So we need to make sure that we're really aware of that. But how you actually process different carbohydrates is going to be different from person to person. So this is, if you do a lot of high intensity workouts like CrossFit, spinning, Orange Theory, stuff like that, you're going to naturally need more carbohydrates. It is your body's main source of energy. So if you find that you're sleeping really poorly, you're maybe you're always cold, you are like fatigued all the time, you're either always hungry or you're never hungry, like those are all signs that you're possibly under eating. As well as like being super sore. Like if you are super sore all the time, then specifically you might not be eating enough carbohydrates. So learning to, it's okay to eat starchy carbs. Like it's okay to eat any carbs. It's okay to eat any food. I have very little rules around food. I used to have all the rules around food and now I have very little. But try adding, or if you tend to be craving sweets a lot or sugar, just try increasing your carbohydrate intake, but try increasing like the rice, the potatoes, the oatmeal. Try to increase it with those things and see if you start to feel better. You need to be comfortable experimenting with your nutrition and figuring out what makes you feel really good. So there's no set amount of carbs that's perfect for everybody. Just try adding a few more in for a week. See how you feel. Tune in. Like if you feel better, you know that was probably what you needed. If you don't feel better, then maybe try something else. Because another thing that we run into, and I tell clients a lot, is if they have a meal and then 2 hours later they're like super hungry, and to them they had like a big enough meal. There's two things going on. Like one, the meal might not have been as big as you thought it was, so you might need more food. But the other thing I usually say is, let's say you had like a fajita bowl, and so you had rice as your carbohydrate. Try swapping that out for sweet potatoes, and have that in your fajita bowl instead, and see if you notice a difference. Because the reality is everybody's body responds to different carbohydrates completely differently. So you can't, like the glycemic index, that's not for everybody. And so one person, rice might spike their blood sugar really high, where sweet potatoes keep it more level, or the vice versa. So learning to experiment with your food is super important.
Nice. Yeah. And I like how you said, just swapping one or two little things out, because I think if you're not careful, you might try and swap 5 different things. Well, you don't know what made the difference. So try it more of like maybe 1 or 2 at the most things at a time. Try that for a week or so, and then see how that affects you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way to add variety to your food. Like, you wouldn't think to necessarily put like sweet potatoes in a fajita bowl, but it changes the dynamic of the food completely. But essentially it's the same meal, but it gives you, like, that's a great way to not get bored with your food too.
Yeah.
So by changing out those tiny things.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. So, okay, we touched on quite a bit of that stuff. Let me see, what is some other things that some nutritional myths that I kind of wanted to talk to. And we actually did kind of touch on this one, is the answer to weight loss is sometimes people think the answer to that is to eat less and move more. That's not always true. A lot, and like, I want to get this out there that like 1,200 calories is not enough food for a toddler. So we have to stop listening to MyFitnessPal and telling us that we need 1,200 calories a day. Like, if you were already, like, most women need between 1,800 and 2,500 calories a day, just depending on like their activity level. So if you're already not eating even close to that, like let's say you're eating 1,500 calories a day when your body actually needs more than that, then cutting it down to 1,200 is just going to do more damage than it is good. It will work the first time. So this is the warning. Everything works until it doesn't. So it'll work the first time because like you give yourself few enough calories, you're going to start to drop body weight. But then your body is very smart. I've said that often since we've been on this call. But what it does is it starts to down regulate certain parts of our body that don't, because it's trying to survive. So it knows that those calories need to go to your brain, your heart, your lungs, the things that are going to keep us really moving forward as far as survival goes. And it starts to slow down other things. So it starts to slow down your metabolism, because the more efficiently it can run, the better. It doesn't have enough calories to get through, so it can't run hot, right? I would say your metabolism is like a fire. So if you don't put anything on it, it's just like coals and ashes, and there's not a whole lot happening. Food is like the logs. So when you start to put more logs on it, our fire starts to burn hotter, and that's an important thing to realize. But again, when you're not eating enough, so your metabolism, it kind of comes down, then it starts to shut down things, like I said, reproductive systems. So your hormones are getting totally out of whack, because again, it's like, we can't have a baby. You don't even have enough calories for you. And then 3, it starts to slow down your digestive system. So if you struggle with a lot of digestive issues, a lot of constipation, stuff like that, it's slowing those things down so that it has enough energy to run the rest of the body. So so that's like, again, it will work until it doesn't. And then your body starts to slow, everything starts to slow, and you will just start to, like, you're not going to be able to lose weight or change your body composition, because your body is like, oh, no, we've been here before. Like, I'm not going back there. I'm going to hold on to all of this extra fat because she might not feed me. Like, I don't know when I'm going to get fed again. And so I'm not willing to let go of any type of body fat because of that. And then throw exercise on top of it. So a lot of times people marry diet and exercise. They're like, well, I'm going to stop eating, and then I'm also going to exercise more. And so now they're throwing this like double whammy on the body. They are stressing it the fuck out because they're not eating enough calories, which is stressful. And now they're exercising on top of it, which is stressful for the body. So the body is like, what is happening here? And that's why a lot of people have like a negative relationship with exercise, because if you're exercising and you don't have enough fuel, you're going to feel really shitty. So they're like, every time I start a diet, I feel terrible. Yep. Yeah, sure, you are going to. You're just like, again, you're burning so many calories and you're not feeding yourself well enough, and your body is just gonna like totally be stagnant and not change at all. So that's unfortunately what the world is telling us is what we're supposed to be doing. So it's like,
that's great though, and I've heard that before, where it could be counterintuitive, where like say if you stop eating, then your body's actually holding on to that fat because it says, I don't know when I'm gonna get any more. And I loved how you explained all that in a really easy way, for no pun intended, an easy way to digest, that information.
Good. Yeah, and it is true. Like most people that I have ever worked with, I would say like 90% have to do something called a reverse diet, which is exactly what I just said. We have to actually increase the amount of food that they're eating to get their body to a place where it feels safe again. We've done a really good job at making our body feel unsafe, which is why people think their bodies are revolting against them, but your body's always working for you. It's just trying to survive and doing the best it can with what you're giving it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to be respectful of your time. So how we doing? Are you okay? What do we got?
Oh yeah, I'm totally. I can tomorrow. I'll be respectful of your time.
All right. Well, let's give it just another couple minutes. So if you got any more like last minute tips, then we'll put a bow on it and call it good. I mean, this has just been so much amazing. I mean, I even knew I was going to get a ton out of it, and I absolutely have. So I'm sure that the audience is loving this too. So, but we'll give them like one or two more little tips real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely. So I'm going to I will make sure that we hook up a link so that people can access my meal prep guides. Those are going to essentially teach you how to build a meal and give you some ideas of different things. And like, whether you're like, I even give some different snack options and some different stuff, because like, it doesn't really matter whether you're having a snack or a meal or whatever, or you're making a recipe. Think about these things in your head, like protein, carb, fat, vegetable, good. And you're gonna feel like really freaking good. So I'm gonna make sure that everybody who's watching has the link to access that. Awesome. I think the other thing that I just want to touch on, because this is a common misconception that I deal with. I don't teach weight loss. I teach health, and I think that it's much harder to sell. But there's this misconception that you have to lose weight in order to be healthy. And we actually need to be healthy in order for our body to even consider losing any type of weight. And so our focus is in the wrong place. Like, we need to quit chasing the extrinsic, I want to look a certain way, and instead doing things because it is what is going to make you feel really, really good. And I also thank you, diet culture, that we believe that the person who looks really good is healthy. And I promise you that just because somebody has a six-pack or what you would consider the perfect body, like that, they are not necessarily a healthy person. Your health is not directly connected to the size you are, nor the weight, nor how much you weigh. Yeah. And so I like to make sure that people understand that your healthiest size has nothing to do with what society has told us is our healthiest size. I have been there. I've been 122 pounds, and I should never, ever be 122 pounds, but I had all the things. I had the six pack, I had the perfect body, and I was crumbling on the inside. My health was crumbling. My mental state was crumbling. So just understand that, like, your healthiest size has, like I said, has nothing to do with a certain weight. It has nothing to do with a certain size. It's going to be totally different for every single person. And it really should be the things like when you are thriving in life, when your relationships are amazing, when you are happy on a daily basis. It's when your digestive system is functioning well, you're sleeping good, like your hormones are regulated, your social life is good. Like, it's when we can take all of these things and combine them, that's what your healthiest size is. And it has nothing to do with a number. So I just like to make sure that people understand that as well, because we are so surrounded by diet culture and what we perceive to be healthy that we don't even know we're in it. So I just like to make sure that people do have that understanding, because it's not, we aren't told that nearly enough.
No, well, there's so much marketing that gives us this ideal image. It's not even attainable. It's all airbrushed, and I think that's a perfect spot for us to, wrap this up with, is just, where your body feels the happiest and feels the best is your ideal place. It's not some magic number. And I'll just tie this into when I was a kid. Like I said, I've always been a skinny kid. And I remember getting on some scale one time. It was like one of those little, you put a quarter in it, it tells you your fortune and all this bullshit. And it said, your ideal weight is 100 and whatever it was. And so I felt like, oh crap, I'm not the right weight, because this says my ideal weight based on my height, is this. And so I always felt insecure about it. And I got to the point anymore, I don't fucking care. It just, I'm going to be me. And every year when I go to get my physical done, they're always like, perfect. And then we never even really discuss, a weight. I think there's a range they have or something, but I don't even look at my weight anymore. It just comes naturally based on what I'm doing in terms of my exercise regimen and what I'm eating and, doing all that. So I love the fact that you put that out there.
Thank you. I mean, for sure, we have to be careful. I like to tell, I gave up the scale. I had to, because there's a time and a point and a place where if you have to watch your relationship with the scale and how much that's impacting your daily life. And if you step on the scale in the morning and you feel differently before you stepped on compared to after you stepped on, depending if it's higher or lower than what you thought it should be, there's a lot of factors that go into the scale, but that's a time to get rid of it, because it does not define your worth. It should not define how you show up for the world. It doesn't give you permission to eat more or restrict more, or you have to exercise more. We really need to start thinking about, how do we feel? How are we feeling? And fat is not a feeling. It's not an emotion. And so usually when we stand in the mirror and we look at ourselves and we say, I feel fat, it's not that. It's what's actually going on. And it's usually you're feeling insecure, you're feeling unloved, or you're feeling unworthy. And those are deeper rooted things than simply, again, fat's not a feeling. It's not an emotion. We got to figure out the emotion that's going on with that.
Nice.
So
that's a whole nother hour-long conversation. So, well, we'll put a bow on it right there. Stacy, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed this. A ton of great value. I
had so much fun.
Yes. So before we hop off, you've already shared at the beginning, but let's make sure if people weren't here in the very beginning, how can they connect with you? What's the best place to reach out to you? I want to make sure they can follow up with you if they would like to get some more information from you.
Absolutely. So I'm on Facebook at Stacy Gissal, and Instagram's probably the best place. So Stacy_Gissal. I just actually launched my brand new website today. And
nice.
So you can head out into there. It's www.stacygissal.com. And there's actually a free printable 14-day journal that I have put in there. It has a section for all the things that I believe are so important to your health. So there's a mindset section, nutrition, movement, and then a little daily planner to help you get shit done. So that's a free gift to you guys. So head on over and check that out. I always say try on all the sections for 14 days, see what you like and what you don't. And if there's one that you particularly resonate with, then I will give you access to just print out that, or whatever you're looking for. So definitely check that out. I actually just opened enrollment too for my brand new Confident Eating program, which will now be the only program that I actually offer, where I will walk you through. I'm with you for 12 weeks, guiding you on how to get to the root cause of find that nutritional blueprint and really start to live a happier, more fulfilled life and love the person that you see in the mirror. So yeah, so that is I think that's what I got.
That's it. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, when this call is over, if you don't mind, just do us a favor and drop your information in the comment section, so that way they can just jump right to it. And then, you talked about your stories earlier, and we'll wrap it up right here. Bridget, our friend Bridget, she was on here when you mentioned earlier about your IG stories, said she loved your IG stories, sharing your journey. So definitely, you guys need to go check it out.
Oh, I got to ask the question though.
Oh, yeah. See, I was going to ask you to ask the question.
Yes. Okay. So this has like been such a build up. You guys are probably going to think I'm crazy. Okay. So here's like seriously what I need to know is I was cooking burger the other day and I was like, why is it so important that we brown burger and like we cook it thoroughly? Like it always says, don't leave anything pink, right?
Yeah.
But we cook hamburgers and we leave them purposely not cooked. Can you give, do you know?
I have no idea.
Wouldn't it be weird if you were like, if somebody was like, how would you like your tacos cooked? Done. Like, I don't like, and you would never say medium, because then you'd be like, oh my God, this isn't done. Isn't that weird?
That is kind of strange. Yeah.
Well, if anybody has the answer to that, please, because this has been like boggling my mind.
Let us know. Yeah, because it's now see, I'm glad you didn't ask at the beginning, because I've been sitting the whole damn time going, yeah, that makes no sense, because we do it with the steak or with the hamburgers. It's the pink in the middle. You
would not have listened or heard anything I said, because you would have been like, I'm still trying to figure out the burger thing.
Yeah. So awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, James. This was so fun. I appreciate it. I'd love to, if anybody has any follow-up questions, anything, I'm always available. Happy to help. So
awesome. All right. Well, Stacy, again, thank you so much. And guys, we will see you back here on the next call. All right. And you guys have a great day.
Thank you.